Hi, thanks for stopping by. I'm Jeff Wolfsberg, and today's video cast is key principles for working with men in the workplace. Obviously, we're talking about men that are struggling in the workplace. But I think no matter who you are, you're going to find out that the strategies that I share with you today are effective with any man in your life that you love that is struggling. So keep your ears open today because these strategies apply outside the workplace as effectively as they do inside the workplace. So if you're here for workplace related issues, you're probably thinking about performance issues, burnout, stress, mental health struggles. And you probably tried everything. This is why you're here, and nothing has worked so far. And unfortunately, when we get to this point, we oftentimes historically have blamed men, saying, "See, men, they're unreachable." I started my career in a drug rehab on Cape Cod as a counselor's aide. I just went around changing sheets and beds and made sure I talked to the patients and encouraged them to stay in complete treatment. And then I got more education. I became a licensed, what we call a LADAC in Massachusetts, a licensed alcohol and drug counselor. And I think at the time, the only, if I remember correctly, the only male clinical staff at the time. And they wanted to give me all the men because, as they put it, guys they don't talk. They just sit there in therapy and they stare at their feet and they grunt. Well, I found that that's not true. If you find the right strategies to reach men based on their masculine ideals, their value system, and how they kind of process the world, how they think as men, which is a strength, not a liability. So let's talk about that a little bit. So how do men first emote, display distress differently than women? Here are some of the typical signs, which is first irritability. That's a good sign. Angry outbursts, withdrawal, common one. Substance use disorders are usually an indicator of a man's in distress, of course. Maybe drinking more than they usually drink if you have a partner, if we're talking about a partner that drinks. And the one that's often given a lot of positive attention is overworking. Men that overwork, this could be a sign of distress. So if you're seeing these things and you're like, okay, I want to address these things. So we need to start thinking about how men operate and how they see the world to develop effective strategies. So let's start there. First of all, number one, men are action oriented. You probably know this already. If you have a partner, and I've gone through this myself in my own relationships, I like to solve problems. Men are problem solving creatures. There's not a single problem that we don't see that we want to solve. And if I love you, if you're my partner or you're a family member, someone I really care about, and you have a problem, I want to solve that problem for you. And that's the same with my own life. So by framing, if you're approaching me, by framing this as we need to emote, which is where most people start. Tell me how you're feeling about your problems. What feelings come up when you think about this? I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in is framing my struggles as a problem to be solved. So what I want to do is I want to frame the language as tools. Jeff, what tools do we need? What strategies do we need? What approach do we need to solve these problems that you're going through? Put it in my hands. Use the language of masculine identity to help me address what I'm currently going through. Because if you want me to sit there in the chair and just talk about my feelings, most men, that's why you have to be careful with generalizations, but it's kind of the 80-20 rule. 80% of men just can't sit in a chair, across from the therapist in that classic therapist office with just two Queen Anne chairs looking at each other with the nice music on in the background and the noise canceling device at the doorway. So Jeff, how was your week? Tell me about it. I can do that, but most men can't. So we want to focus on solutions, action, tools, things that make sense to us. Okay. So, training as well. What training do you need? What improvements do you need? Building me up, build me stronger to deal with the problems I'm currently facing. That's how you want to frame it. Okay. Second one, this is going to require a little kind of me explaining. It's called number two, the shoulder to shoulder strategy, which is, again, going back to that therapist office. For most men, it's very difficult for us to sit here shoulder to shoulder, eyeballs to eyeballs, and talk about what we're struggling with. So when I say shoulder to shoulder, what I'm talking about is most men, in order to kind of get at what's bothering them, need an activity, uh, something that we're doing shoulder to shoulder. We're fixing something, which is a great one. We're involved in some sort of game or other activity where there isn't that direct approach, the eyeball to eyeball, eyeballs to eyeballs, where we're getting organic conversation. Now, going back many years, there's this wonderful movement that's still going on right now, and I'm a huge fan of it. It's called the Shed. Um, and in Australia, and many countries all over Europe, coming here to the U.S. as well, towns are creating what's called men's sheds. Now, think about the shed growing up. I had a shed in the backyard. In that shed was a lawnmower and tools and you name it. That's where my dad went to fix things. And every single time my dad was out there fixing something, sawing something, nailing something, it was like this kind of siren song of other dads in the neighborhood that would, walk like zombies to my dad's shed, and they would be in there, and they would be in there for hours. Um, I thought they were fixing the lawnmower. They weren't fixing the lawnmower. The lawnmower started as the thing, but what became the real thing is men connecting with each other in a shared activity. So if you want men to open up, if you want your partner to open up, you want to be involved in an activity, sitting on the couch and saying, Jeff, what, honey? Sit down. We need to talk. That, I'd rather go get a root canal than to do that. Although, again, like I said, I can do that. But for most men, that's not the way to go about it. We need an activity, something that gets us engaged, kind of combining activity with the problem-solving strategies of number one. Okay, so this, another way I discovered this, going back to my rehab days, is when I did get those male clients early on in my career. I had a young man that was like 20 years old, and sure enough, he came into my office and he sat there looking at his feet in the office, not saying a word. I was like, how is things going on at home? How are people reacting to you being in treatment? How is your stay going? One word answers, fine, nothing, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. Well, I had 50 minutes that I had to book with this young man. And I remember like looking out the window. It was fall. It was getting cool. We had a fire pit out in the back area of this drug rehab. And there was a whole cord of wood that was dropped off. And I said to this young man, I don't know why I said it, but I discovered this. I said, oh, my boss told me that if I had some free time today, if I could do him a favor and stack that wood. So I said, do you want to help me? And he looked right up. He goes, yes, I do. Like almost like anything to get out of this terrible like moment that we're having together where I have to look at you and actually talk about my feelings. So we're out there and we start picking up the wood. We're walking it across, maybe 20, 30 feet, setting it down, building up these stacks of wood. Then I started asking him questions like, how's things going at home? And sure enough, he started opening up. He talked about his dad and he talked about how he felt like he let his family down. And I discovered activity. That's secret. That's number two, shoulder to shoulder. We never looked at each other for almost the next 45 minutes. Never even made eye contact. But a lot was done. And I remember him turning to me at the end saying, this is the best session I've ever had. And from that point on, with any time I had a man coming into my office, I gave them the choice. Again, this is another strategy. When dealing with men and you're structuring an intervention, give men a choice. Let them choose from a number of options as opposed to prescribing. Men need choice. I think all people need choice, but it's very empowering for a man to have strategy number three, which is choice over the behavioral interaction. So there is three right off the bat. So one, using the problem-solving instincts of men to their advantage, shoulder to shoulder, and then providing options so the man feels empowered and engaged in his own solutions. Okay, so going again with the strength-focused aspect of problem solving, what you're trying to get across to the man when he's struggling with his issues is we are trying to build capacity. Here's the metaphor that I always come up with when I work with my male clients, which is I ask him, do you go to the gym? Yeah, I go to the gym. I work out. I do too. And most of the men that I work with are my age. I'm 59 years old. And my reasons for going to the gym now are very different than they were when I was 29 years old. When I went to the gym at 29 years old, I was trying to look attractive, although that's still important to me. But I go to the gym now to become injury proof. That metaphor, even for the younger men, still resonates. So when I'm talking about interventions on struggles, I talk in a strength developing capacity, skill building, resiliency training, injury prevention, thinking of mental health as a potential injury or a current injury. And we are going to provide PT to that injury by building up your skill set. So that's strategy number 4, talking in the language of strength building to make you more strong, more powerful, and more resilient for the future. Strategy number 5 is normalize the experience. One of the most powerful things I think I do when I speak, whether it's a keynote or it's a workshop, is to share my own lived experience with my own substance use disorder, my mental health struggles, and specifically my struggles around suicide ideation. There is not a single workshop or keynote that I've ever given where, given the opportunity to share my mental health struggle specifically through the lens of being a man, again, through the lens of my own masculine identity and ideals, which are important to me. And as much as we've done the toxic masculinity dance the last 5 to 7 years, which got us nowhere, it actually hurt more men than it helped. I see masculinity as an extremely positive thing when directed. The energy is directed correctly. Right now, we're seeing a lot of angry men in our society, and angry men are men that lack purpose and direction. So again, when I'm working with men, and anger is the primary presenting symptom, I usually find a man that is lacking purpose, lacking mission in his life. This is why a lot of men who get divorced go through a very long period and struggle with the emotion of anger, because family, which was their driving purpose for many, many years, is no longer there until they replace it with a new purpose. So my keynotes, when I'm talking about my struggles with depression and bipolar and suicide ideation, I'm normalizing the experience for men. And this is something that also needs to be part of the strategy, which is making men understand that this experience that you're having right now is not unique. It is normal. And the construction industry is doing a wonderful job of this, sharing stories, utilizing people like me to come in and share our stories. So important stuff. So these are 5 strategies for you to get going. I encourage you to reach out to me. We'd love to work with you if we're not working with you already. Other than that, have a wonderful day. And men are positive and men are good.